Hey guys, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Lo, and welcome to another episode of Try Saying That Out Loud, a podcast where we talk about weird, hilarious, and only sometimes consequential things.
It's our lives and our truths, uncensored and unscripted. Sorry. Oh.
Just fucking go with it. Sorry, kids.
Good job, guys. Good job, team.
Go team.
Go team.
Break.
Hello.
Hi, how are
Maybe
you?
he can pull it from another one.
Or we just leave it. I mean,
whatever.
We were bound to fuck it up at some point.
For sure. And I also flipped the words. Enough of me. Hi. This is weird recording at night.
I know, it must be weird for you. I was thinking, no, haven't we done one other one that's kind of in the evening for you?
I believe you, but I don't know. I feel like this is, other than like on the weekend, this is the first time I'm like, oh, this is reasonable to like have a glass of wine in front of me.
I know. It's what a difference.
Right.
I'm holding tea.
I mean, it's like 3:15 there.
Yeah, like, it's not super late.
It's the middle of the day. Listen, let me tell you something.
Tell me.
I know I mentioned this briefly to you. When I fucking tell you I was not panicked, but like concerned that I was not going to have a Try Saying That Out Loud moment for this week, I was like, am I that grossly privileged that in 2 weeks, like nothing would come up?
Or are you so unself-aware?
Correct.
Which is like, what is worse?
They're both horrific. So I was like, that can't possibly be like a thing. Like, I get that Biden's president now, but like, I haven't like turned my brain off. So I was reading our book, which we'll like obviously get to, Uncomfortable Conversations with the Black Man. And there was a chapter where he is mentioning that he went on like I think it was like a real estate tour with one of his friends. And they were showing like as an example of great like architecture or like a feature, plantation shutters. And first of all, we have plantation shutters in our house. Never even fucking occurred to me.
75% of America does, let's be real.
Right. Yeah, we have them on 4 windows. And it literally just never crossed my mind. But, and I have thought about this before. So like this isn't news to me. But my plantation wedding that happened 2.5 years ago. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't like at the plantation house. I was in a horse carriage barn. So like take that for what it's worth. But yeah, I got married on a plantation in Charleston.
That hits.
It hits.
You're like, I was in the barn, and in my head I'm like, where they kept enslaved people. Like,
listen,
not to double down, but that's all when you said that, I was like, oh, well, okay.
Like they tell me it's a horse. Like they tell me it was like the horse carriage house. Like I hope that's what it was.
Do you call them and ask? Can I just clarify?
Can we just like discuss? Well, and also we went back. It's like it's a historical site. This particular plantation. There's 2 in Charleston that are like.
What makes them historical sites? That's the other thing. White men thinking they're right. Okay.
Well, and like how long they've been on this like property, the fact that they like
they were true to the history of like when it was
stuff like that. But so when we went back on our anniversary, our first anniversary, went back and did like a tour, and thinking about it now, it was just all fucking about everything that was in the house and like the architecture and like the white dudes that lived there. I didn't hear one fucking thing about the slaves. Not one. One.
That's alarming.
Yeah.
Because you would think that now, well, you wouldn't think.
It was in September of 2019.
Yeah, so but you would hope that even then someone would be like, this is the history of this land, and this is a really important component of it.
We are talking about South Carolina, which is like a different breed.
That's true. That's a whole thing.
This is a place where school kids go on field trips and like learn. Like it's known for that. Like it's a, people are getting tours there every day. Like it's like a thing. So yeah, I've been sitting with that for the last 24 hours. I mean, like I had thought about it before, but it was just like,
yeah, I know you have. I mean, I think when everything kind of started happening, I don't remember when but I remember you were reflecting on that. And you're like, oh, well, I'm not going to share any of my wedding photos.
Right. Well, it's or like not going to tag them as like where they are
You're
and like
right. Yeah.
remind people. And what's so interesting is now, not that it like really will hurt their business, I don't think, but like the Knot and Wedding Wire and Martha Stewart Weddings have taken down all these like these plantation venues from their website and like aren't allowing them to like host. I mean, they are booked out so far in advance that I can't imagine it really affects them. And especially because it's like if you're in Charleston, you know about them. So like people
Yeah.
just don't
Yeah.
care.
I just
But
wonder too, like, it's like we've just talked about, if the history is acknowledged and people that are going to do tours and whatnot are educated on the full history of the property, like
right.
plantation could, the word itself could carry a different connotation, like, okay, like I'm
Right.
not a totally different connotation, but from the perspective of, okay, like I fully understand what this term means. And like, it can still be a way of like, let's respect the history and like acknowledge, the atrocities that happened here, whatever.
But like
But,
that's obviously not what's happening.
but that's obviously not what's happening. And so it's almost just like, like similar to how people are taking down, Confederate statues. Like, do we need to like strip these places of like, does the word plantation need to just like not like,
Yeah, like call it something else. I
right,
don't
but
know.
then I think that ignores the problem, so that's like not a perfect fix. But it also makes me think. I think I saw it on Instagram. I don't remember when, but it was the picture of, someone must have tweeted it, like one of those tweet photo gif whatever things, and it was a youngish, like probably like our age, like 30s, maybe late 20s, black man standing outside of a house he had purchased, and it was like a plantation house where like his like relatives had like been enslaved, and he was like, fuck yeah. And I was like, yes. I
But
was like,
like
you take that fucking power back. Like,
the
that's kind of an
heat of that, like I
awesome.
just like it's amazing. It's
Right.
really amazing.
Right. And so it's thinking too, it's like, well, if you took away the word plantation, like you couldn't give like the power. I mean, how like, I mean, I don't even understand how you rise above that trauma and like still are like, yeah, I'm going to buy this house. Like that to me is like a
Right.
really incredible person. But, anyways, I liked that happy story of a
Oh, it's
happy
great.
plantation story.
Right there.
Not that your wedding wasn't a happy day, but
No, but like I mean it's still a thing. So yeah, I've been dealing with that, sitting with that.
Yep, that's heavy.
I talked to my parents about it once and they were like, "Are you going to issue an apology?" Like they weren't it came up when Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds
Yes,
issued their
that's what it
apology.
was. Right.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
like, I'm not
Right.
Blake
Like I'm not a
Lively.
famous person. Like I'm not this isn't like who am I apologizing to? Like who like obviously like I understand the concept of like who I would be apologizing to, but like no one gives a fuck what I have to
Right.
say.
Right.
But yeah, it was a lot and it actually reminded me my mother-in-law said something. I'm not going to repeat it because it was really grim. But my mother-in-law said something like about like sort of how haunting the plantation was like when we were like when she came for the wedding and I was like and I at the time I was like what a horrible thing to say on my wedding day, but now that I go back and think about it I'm like well yeah,
She was right.
right, she was right.
She wasn't wrong. Yeah, that's a
Right.
heavy one. Yeah, so you probably
It
like
was
woke up in the middle of the night like
it was literally
hot.
as I was reading this book and saw like plantation shutters like in
I
in
know the
writing.
plantation shutters thing was so interesting in that book because it's just such a fucking white person thing.
It's the whitest thing. It's the whitest thing
The
you can do
whitest thing.
besides
So
starting a podcast.
we're getting some new, we're getting some like pull down blinds in our house
Yeah.
because there are some areas that just get beat down with sun and it
Yeah.
like, you can't even work at the breakfast table. And, the guy was like, we could also do plantation shutters. And
No, we can't.
I was like, you're offering, like, it was just that it was also weird to hear it in the context of being in San Francisco, like, because everyone I feel like
Yeah.
builds these like hyper modern homes. So like the fact that someone offered it to me was also very jarring. I was like,
Right.
wait, like
Right.
that's still a thing.
What's like
Like
the normal shutter in San Francisco or blind?
it's like a pull
A pull.
down,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Where you like, or it's like battery operated, where it's just you can hardly see it, and then it comes down, and it's like,
Right.
which
We have the
is
pull down on all of our, we have a ton of windows in our house and all of the main ones have just like the pull up and down. And then, um,
Probably
Yeah,
like
I
the
think
ones
the
in the
only other
front or
ones we
something.
have are those poor fucking plantation shutters. So
Yeah. Well,
that was my
we'll talk about that book later because
yeah.
I
So that was my moment. I mean, there's not really anything, and that's one of those things, right? Where like people say like you're gonna fuck up, and like you just have to sit with it and learn from it and like move on and do better. And
totally.
it's like clearly there's nothing to be done at this point. Like there's no action to be taken. I'm obviously not going to promote the plantation if I post any pictures of my
Can they just like
wedding.
change the name of a plantation shutter? Sorry, I'm harping on the shutters.
No, but right, why? Like why? Like slatted shutters. What's like
Or like if it's like architecturally relevant, like plantation is an architecturally relevant term, and I would know that because I took history of architecture 2 times.
right?
So it's not like a relevant anyway. Yeah, no, there's nothing to be
It's
done.
a
It's
descriptor, right?
right.
Like it's just like yeah.
It's like what people probably think of the time period, but like I still don't even buy that.
No.
And like
No.
there can be a way less offensive way.
You can say slatted shutters. You just can. Whatever. It doesn't matter. But
Or
yeah,
like southerns, I don't know. Like there's something else to
southern
like
shutters, yeah.
right, like illustrate the time frame that it was happening in. But no, that's a good try. Yeah, clearly
Yeah.
we're not having issues having try saying that out loud moments because mine
No.
also.
Right. Like even though we're doing it double the amount of episodes, there have been no issues coming up with
So
moments,
I'm
which
just
like
going to tell myself that we're just really self-aware and it's a
yeah,
great
I'm here for
quality
that.
that we have
Yep.
and that's it because if
Yep.
I
If we go the other way, yeah, it's not good.
not good.
It's not good.
My moment and it's funny because it similar to yours in some ways it took a second to hit. Like
And you're
but
like,
I was like,
"Oh,
mhm, not cute. So and you probably saw it on my Instagram stories, or we talked about it really briefly as well. I used to do intermittent fasting,
mhm.
probably 2019, before I started all my health stuff happened last year. And I kind of was like blindly doing it, like, didn't really understand the science, just kind of was like, oh, someone says
It's
this
a
is a good idea.
thing."
It's a thing
Right.
to do. Right. It was very much fell into that trap. So I started to get a little bit more intrigued about it because I've been learning in school about blood sugar dysregulation and all those sorts of things. And it has come up in a couple of the podcasts I listen to. And so I started a book that's, exclusively intermittent fasting. And I'm sitting here reading it. And at the same time, there's a portion. So my program's really great because they do share a lot of like social justice with regards to like agriculture and the earth and climate change. And so I get exposed to a lot of cool avenues
Yeah,
for
that's
learning about those
awesome.
things. And so kind of in the middle, I'm like learning about how how I should go without eating for a meal potentially, while I'm also reading about how 1 in 5 children is food insecure and how they like don't eat breakfast because they can't. And I was like, I mean, I get goosebumps now, and I was like, oh, uh-huh, okay. So it's just kind of similar to how only 5% of vegetarians and vegans do so out of like
By choice.
right.
Oof, that's a
Most
statistic.
Yeah, most people, and I should 100% confirm this, but it's like most people are doing it because,
They can't afford.
right.
Oh my god.
So, yeah, it's like the elective. I wish I could find it. And once again, I need to be way better about these things. But, anyways, it's like the elective vegan vegetarianism.
Is there
And
a very small percentage of those people?
yes, exactly,
God.
5%. And the other 95 is because they cannot access healthy, meat, dairy,
Edible meat, right?
edible, right? So I
That's a
was,
wild statistic.
yeah, and so that was something. I was like, okay, and the stat is it's like that. 5% of people, it's like trends significantly up with affluence
Of
and all
course.
sorts of privilege. And I was like, okay, yeah, so we can't like, and it's in some ways if I hadn't read the statistic about kids, I maybe would not have been like as affected. But I think that like for children especially, it's like this is how, like, if you're not instilling in them proper eating habits in terms of like, and having a healthy relationship with food, like that unlocks like
A
years of
lot.
trauma.
A lot.
And it was just a lot. So I'm, kind of exploring this, and I'm hoping this new book that I'm reading, because I think I told you, and we'll talk about intermittent fasting in another episode, but most of the studies on intermittent fasting that have been done are on white college age males.
Oh,
Shocker.
that's so weird.
So bizarre. And this
Yeah.
guy specifically has like an entire section on women and
It's
like
amazing.
what they know so far
I'm sure
about like
it's so different.
it's very different. And the TLDR from what I know so far is like very much like your cycle and hormonally like what's going on in your body.
For
Because
sure.
our bodies are by nature a roller coaster ride of hormones. And so it depends. But
Yep.
anyway, I'm hoping, I'm not super far into this book because I read like 5 things at one time, but I'm hoping that this book maybe sheds a little bit of light on that as well.
I
In
can't wait
terms
for
of,
that.
yeah, it was a heavy moment. I was like, yeah, okay, so I'm just like thinking about not
Right.
having breakfast or like eating breakfast later in my day. I guess that's the way to think about it. It's like I still eat breakfast, I just eat it a little bit later. But
But
like,
still,
but there are children that
don't have that
cannot.
option. Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
That is, yeah.
Hello, privilege. Nice to see you again.
Right. Welcome back.
Welcome back. You know the drill. Just like take your shoes off and
have a seat, sit down.
Tea, coffee, what can I get you?
Right. Have a glass of wine with us. On like the intermittent fasting note, I'm also very interested in it. Ben is very pro intermittent fasting. And
Does
like
he
I'm
do
like
it?
not currently, but like he'll go through phases where he's like, I'm gonna intermittent fast. So he's like big into it. But like, let's be clear, like Ben is a beanpole. So like it's not like for me, if I was to intermittent fast, I would want to do it so that it like improved my metabolism or whatever like the health and whatever benefits are. I don't totally know why he would ever do any diet, to be perfectly honest. Like he should just eat like a normal person.
So if he's anything like one of my friends who is a really, I mean, one time I went to dinner with him and it was the first time he'd eaten all day. And I was like, oh, okay. But men can have a totally, for him, it's like a health thing, but also like a performance thing. Like men are like fascinated with that. Why I'm interested in it is, it's from a brain health perspective. I'm super interested in, because glucose dysregulation and like any sort of blood sugar
Right.
imbalance or like insulin resistance, which honestly, like I feel like most people in the United States are somewhere on the spectrum, like even
Yep.
probably me, like it's so bad. But especially that can really especially affect the brain to the point where Alzheimer's is considered like type 3 diabetes.
What?
Because it's like the portion.
It's that related.
Right. Well, because there are glucose receptors on the brain, like energy receptors on the brain, and the particular memory centers of the brain are apparently like really super sensitive. And so if you're not getting enough glucose, those parts of your brain die off. So, I mean, it's one theory amongst many, but so I'm curious about it from that perspective. And there are all sorts of like, does your brain prefer glucose for energy? Does your brain prefer ketones for energy? And so intermittent fasting gets you into ketosis,
Right.
which is basically burning fat for energy. And my whole thing is like, I'm just trying to figure out like, oh, like what does the brain prefer to burn? Because if the brain prefers to burn ketones,
then
and I can get then that's kind of like, especially, history of brain health in my family. It's like, that's kind of like why I'm curious about it. But no, a lot of people do it because they're like, I want to lose weight. And I'm like, well, but that's like a benefit of what's happening, but like your body's benefiting in other ways, hopefully.
Right.
Or
right.
like, I just don't think it's fair. I don't think anything is one size fits all for everyone. So
Nope.
That's kind of my perspective.
Actually, Ben said that yesterday. We were talking about it, and he was like, nutrition is like the least one size fits all thing.
Absolutely. Yep.
Like every single person is going to be different. Like, yeah, there are like trends, but like everyone is going to be different. But yeah, he's tried a lot of things, like not because he needs to, obviously, but like we did keto a couple years ago. Oh my God, it was my nightmare, but he liked it. he was like into it. He liked
Feels
it.
good. I mean, at the end of the day, you listen to your fucking body. If you're
Right.
feeling great, hey,
Right.
that's
Well,
something.
my problem with it is, first of all, he like does not have any sort of mental relationship with food. Obviously, it's a lot more common for women to have like some sort of a mental or emotional relationship with food than it is for men. Like men are just like literally, it's what I need to move on to my next day. Whereas like for so many women, you look at it and you're like, well, can I eat this before X or whatever, whatever the scenario is. So with keto, like I'm already thinking about food all the time and like
Mm-hmm.
worrying about it. Keto like put it on steroids. I was constantly worried about like what my next meal could be because like I could only
You
have
felt
X
so
number.
restricted. Yeah.
Right. And it's not that it's like, I mean, it is restrictive, but it's not that it's like so restrictive. Obviously, like you could have like unlimited cheese and unlimited vegetables, basically. Like it's not like there's no food you can eat,
Right.
but like I felt like I was like, what is my next meal going to be? Like, what?
No, it's you have to approach, and yeah, that's a really, really good point. That's my biggest thing with intermittent fasting is like trigger warning, like do not if you have any unhealthy relationship with food. But like I think it's also, and I spoke a little bit, I think last episode about uh uh elimination diets.
Hmm.
God, my brain. But it's my number one tip because when I did one, I had the same thing, and I was like, "Fuck, what am I supposed to fucking eat?" And I literally put a list down of all the things I could eat compared to
And
all
just
the
picked
things I
off of it.
couldn't. I did like a yes and a no column, and it was so helpful in shifting the mindset of like, what can I eat?
Right. Yeah,
Right.
that makes sense.
But
Well,
no,
it was, yeah.
that can be a nightmare. Ugh.
Yeah, it was really just not it's not a sustainable thing. And for me with intermittent fasting, for the most, and I've done it before too, for the most part, I mean, I pretty much intermittent fast naturally. When I wake up, I'm if I'm like, going out to breakfast, I will eat breakfast right away, but like my natural inclination is not to like
Eat right
immediately
away.
like
Yeah.
have a bowl of oatmeal, whatever. So I will normally have my first meal like around lunchtime, whether it's breakfast food or not.
Yep.
So like I'll have it around noon, and then naturally we'll have eaten dinner by 8 o'clock because I am a grandma and I make sure we will have eaten by that time.
Yep.
And so then like I'm naturally in that cycle.
Yeah, that's
So
great. And
yeah.
honestly, the only people that like don't, I mean, it's giving your body a rest. I feel like the only people that that type of thing doesn't work for is if you're like a fucking marathon runner, right? And
Oh
you're like,
yeah.
you like need to like be fueling some sort of
Right.
activity. But
Right. If
anyway,
you're an Olympics, you're training for the Olympics and you're loading, like probably don't intermittent fast.
yeah,
So
probably not wise. But no, we'll see. We'll see what I think about it.
I'm intrigued. I can't wait to
I got
hear.
a ton of feedback on that Instagram post. Like people were very excited about hearing about it. It's probably because it's so buzzy and like
It
so
is
many
really
people are.
buzzy. It was like, I
Um,
feel like it was really big last year, not 2020, 2019.
yes,
I forget that we're in another year. In 2019, I feel like it was like super buzzy. It was just like everywhere.
absolutely.
That's when Ben tried it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I'm pumped to hear about it.
We'll
I'm
see
very
if I have
intrigued.
any thoughts at all.
What else is on the health agenda?
Oh, what else? So took some questions from listeners, quote unquote listeners, people that follow me
Our
on
five.
fucking Instagram. Yeah. Um, and took some suggestions. This one in particular is I kind of liked how last week was a little bit reflective of what I'd been learning in school.
Yep.
And so this week I wanted to a little bit do the same. So this is not necessarily a community sourced question, but I felt like it was very apt for the moment because
Yep.
even and that's another one of the topics we can talk about is like COVID has been so disorienting for so many people from a mental health perspective. And the lack of community and very isolating, and I just think
Yep.
mental health especially is really important. And one of the things that's been a more eye-opening for me is how diet really does play a big role in your mental health. And so I wanted
So
to talk
much.
a little bit today about kind of the gut brain connection,
Ooh, this is great.
because there is a big one, and I'll try to keep it a little bit shorter than I did last time because I could speak
Listen,
forever.
everyone, I got so many messages. People were like, "Oh, Lowe's section was really good. I really loved it."
Oh
So,
great, I got none of
people
those things, so I'm really glad.
to be clear, maybe they thought you wouldn't see them because you post once a month.
Oh, fair,
Yeah. They
totally
knew
fair.
I would get it.
Um, yeah, once a month is 100% accurate.
Yep.
Okay, so gut brain connection is a real thing. So the gut, I think, plays so many roles, and a lot of people are probably going to find this very obvious, but physical digestion, obviously.
Right.
A lot of people, I think, probably have been told that the immune system is also really impacted by your gut. 70% of the immune system is in the gut. So sometimes
That's so wild.
it's called the second brain. I know. Isn't it wild? It's wild to hear the statistics.
Yeah.
So sometimes the gut, and it's the enteric nervous system, or kind of like the nervous system cells that line our gut and our GI tract. But that's 70% of our immune system.
Crazy.
Second brain. Wild. So, but also emotions. And so there's a nerve that's actually the longest nerve in the body. And it is called the vagus nerve, and it connects the central nervous system to that enteric nervous system that I mentioned.
Oh, that's wild.
So
wait, did you say Vegas?
Vagus nerve, yeah.
Like Las Vegas?
Yes, but spelled Vagus.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah,
anyway.
Yeah, it's not like Las Vegas.
I was like, oh, what a cool name.
But this is also, I mean, it's kind of funny because last time when we talked about elimination diets, I was like, also like pro tip, comment, like write down how you're feeling.
Right.
Also,
it matters.
Because the other day, suddenly, and I don't remember, I think I'd eaten something slightly out of the ordinary, but I was like, I am irritable. Like whoa. Is
this when you came out of a yoga rage?
Oh, I was ragey after that yoga class. It was not that time. But occasionally I get very ragey, and I don't. So I have to, and even though obviously it's not always, I'm going through hormone shit too, like we all are, but so it's not always food related, but it's important to pay attention to. But so the brain and the gut connected by this vagus nerve. It's called the wandering nerve. It's the longest nerve in the body. It's kind of honestly the reason why people emotionally eat.
Like, I was just going to ask that.
Right. Like if you think about all
that's things, that's the thing.
Yeah. If you think about all those things, so it's really critical for your vagus nerve to kind of be in like a relaxed state. So there are all sorts of,
is that the case?
I know, right? Like depending on your stress levels, to be honest. But also the gut. So outside of the vagus nerve and this connection, the gut is responsible for synthesizing hormones and neurotransmitters.
Okay.
So like being full and being hungry, like all of that happens in the gut and then communicates with your brain. And so if you're stressed, like, and your vagus nerve is like, the vagus nerve can basically communicate, bad things to your brain or untrue things to your brain. But this is another wild stat. 80% of the serotonin made in our body is made in our gut.
What?
Yeah. So it's not fucking around. Like the gut is the second brain, and I'm more and more a believer of this in so many ways.
Oh my God, that's a wild statistic.
So my modules, my school modules these past couple of weeks have been on mental health, and like I learned kind of about this gut second brain, this gut.
Right, I was going to say like how
brain gut axis a while ago, but now it's kind of like a little bit coming full circle with regards to like actual mental health disorders. And I use the term disorders really broadly, like anxiety, depression, anything, like if you're generally feeling kind of melancholy,
okay, so explain how, like, so you have, 80% of the serotonin is coming from your gut, and that's obviously related to mental health. Like, connect the pieces for me, because I'm trying to like it makes sense, but like I need the line.
Right. So it's 100, and this is true of immune system too. It's all about the health of your bacteria in your gut. So you have good bacteria and bad bacteria. If your bad bacteria are feeding on, so I'll back up. Good bacteria, fiber. This is why fiber is so important. Like people say eat fiber because like, be regular or poop.
What about probiotics? Is that the same thing?
Probiotics, basically, so there are prebiotics and probiotics. Prebiotics are things that feed your good bacteria to let them kind of grow. Probiotics are a way of like literally almost replacing, like giving, like supplying your gut with good bacteria.
Oh, okay.
So fiber, and so prebiotic foods, basically anything kind of like if you think of like onions and garlic, like those types of things are considered prebiotic foods. Anything fibrous is going to feed your good bacteria. That's basically like an insoluble fiber, like something that your body cannot digest. Like your good bacteria is going to digest that for you essentially and like feed. If you're giving, and I don't really understand exactly why this is the case, but things like anything really processed or, sugars, like for instance, sugars like can change your gut bacteria in your stomach.
Right.
You have
Well,
too
that's
much of
not
it.
shocking to me.
Right. No,
We're
not shocking at
Americans.
all after kind of what you've been going through. But
Right.
so sugar, in that sense, if we use that example, feeds
Right.
bad bacteria. If
Okay.
bad bacteria are allowed to proliferate, it can basically, like, for lack of a better term, crowd out the good bacteria.
And
you
does
can
that crowd out the serotonin?
Right. So your good bacteria is what's responsible for this hormone, all these neurotransmitters, like that. They kind of like help with the synthesis of those. And so if you don't have
Okay.
enough of that, if you don't have
Then yeah.
enough of those good bacteria, it's kind of like a trickle down effect.
Yep.
So that's essentially like the connection. It's loose. Even in my mind, I'm still trying to be like, okay, but like what exactly, like I still
Right.
feel like,
What's happening
right, I still
exactly?
have some like missing pieces, which hopefully the rest of my program will fill in. But anyway, so that's kind of like the whole thing. So gluten, I can talk about a few things and a few specific like mental health
Yeah, please.
things.
Is anxiety one of them?
Yes. So gluten has been associated with the worsening of anxiety symptoms.
Oh,
Um,
that is interesting.
but so if you have to have bread, if you're like feeling a lot of anxiety, like avoiding gluten can maybe help. And again, it's not going to be like, I feel anxious today and I'm not going to have bread. Like, it has to be kind of a consistent thing. If you're like
Right.
really chronically anxious and you're like losing your mind and you're willing to make a dietary change, like try gluten, who knows what will happen.
Right.
The exception to that, and this well, is fermented sourdough.
Yep.
So fermented foods are probiotic foods essentially. So they
So great.
basically develop their own bacteria and your stomach can use them as good bacteria. So it's almost like kombucha in that way. So
Love
if
it.
you have to have bread, like fermented sourdough is the best thing. But in general, like cutting out like processed glutens, like pasta, like, traditional like white pastas, things like
Yeah,
that.
or bread, like
Bread.
crackers, any of that
Right.
stuff. Yeah.
So in terms of depression and like symptom alleviation, there have been studies compounding the effects of so I think we talked about this last time too. There are good fatty acids and bad
Mhm.
fatty acids. You hear like omega-3s, like I'm sure touted all the time,
Yep.
like fatty fish, salmon, olive oil, avocados,
Avocado. Yeah.
have really high in omega-3s. So those have been associated with symptom alleviation
Of
of
depression.
depression. Yeah. So if you're feeling like kind of down, and again, these are like, if you're like
Right.
diagnosed and you're just like, why am I not feeling better? Because that's the other thing. And obviously I'm still learning about this, but there are plenty of functional medicine doctors that are like, look, like there are, a few different tracks of the way people think about depression, for instance. Some people think it's, neurotransmitter, like chemical imbalance in the brain. That's like one theory of thought. Another theory of thought is that it's like, oh God, I don't even remember. I'm not going to remember. Anyway, the whole point of what I was saying was that medication doesn't work for everyone. And it's like, it comes with a host of side effects. And so if medicine isn't working for you,
Right.
and you're like desperate to like try to alleviate your symptoms, like diet could be a really interesting place.
Right. Obviously, yeah. Like in the same way that nutrition is not a one size fits all, neither is medicine. I mean, obviously, you have proven things that are going to work for certain things. Like obviously, we know chemo is a cure for cancer. Like we know like some things line up,
Right.
but it's not always going to work for every person.
Right. Exactly. So
yeah.
sorry that I remembered the two other typical paths for mental illness. And this isn't just depression, but mental illness, neurotransmitter theory, which I mentioned, and then stress and trauma. So like,
Oh yeah,
me
for sure.
explaining stress, can change that. But it makes sense. Like if you think stress can like literally alter, like stress causes you to be in this like permanent fight or flight, and digestion takes a backseat. So you can like really alter your gut bacteria if you are perpetually and chronically stressed. And so thinking about, it's interesting for me as I go through this program, like thinking about, everything I'm
trauma
learning.
in my opinion, that's like a proven thing. Like how, of course,
Right.
that makes sense.
Right. Trauma makes a lot of sense.
And right, to your point, like that may not be able to be alleviated with medication because it's something that happened in your past. So if it's not a chemical imbalance, then like what,
Right.
what do? You're not going to treat it with medicine necessarily.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I just think it's interesting because trauma is similar to stress. Trauma, and honestly, they should be the same category because
Right.
trauma is basically an ongoing stress
Stress,
response,
yeah.
right? So it's just, yeah, it's very interesting. But all of that is to say that those are a few. So omega-3 fatty acids, like avoiding gluten, like have specific studies against them. Honestly, it's sad because there are not a ton of studies on diet and mental health. I actually have a book that I need to start by a doctor who is fucking awesome, but it's called This Is Your Brain on Food. And I'm super curious to
I've heard of
see.
that book.
Yeah, I want to see what studies she's referencing and kind of what she has found, because I think she spent a lot of time in this area.
Yes, I've
It'll
heard
be
of
an
that book,
interesting
so
book.
I'm excited for you to tell me
Yeah,
what it says
I'll
so
read
that
it
I don't need to
once I
read it.
put down like my 5 other. It's the amount of books that I have that I want to read is
Listen,
overwhelming.
I know. My cart never stops. I
Never.
look at it when we record and I'm like, this is
Not
embarrassing.
to mention that I'm one of those people that I'm like, just finish a book, just finish it. But with the health book, I'm like, well, but this is about
Right.
the brain and this is about women's hormones and this is about fasting. So how do I, like, I
Right.
can read
It's
all of
not
them,
that, yeah.
right? Yeah. And it's just like unsustainable. Um, but then, so in terms of food things, so we talked a little about pre and probiotics, like those are also good. So like if you like fermented foods like sauerkraut, I don't love sauerkraut. I'm going to
Yeah,
experiment
it's
with
like fine.
making my own I'm going to try to ferment my own stuff.
Are you
But
gonna make
beets,
sauerkraut?
do beets, which I know you don't
No,
love.
I don't like beets either. So
Um,
like what? So sourdough bread, that's my option.
or like kombucha. Like I've been trying to find kombucha that is not as high in like added sugars.
Right. It's hard,
Um,
I bet.
it is. It's a little difficult, and I
And
still
also,
haven't.
like, does it even taste good at that point?
Right, and precisely.
Right.
And then I'm also like, yeah, but if I'm giving my body good bacteria, don't the sugars cancel out? It's
I
not
was
true.
just gonna say that.
I don't know.
Like, do they?
Probably not.
No? Okay.
Probably not. But or I mean, supplementation is always an option too. Taking like a pre or probiotic.
I take
Um,
a probiotic. I
or
think
both.
it's actually is it possible for them to be a combined thing? Is that a
I
possible
think
thing?
those exist. I don't. The only prebiotic that I should get way better about taking is I have a insoluble. It's like a fiber like powder
Okay.
prebiotic.
So then maybe it's just a probiotic. Do you know seed? I'm sure you've heard of it.
Yes, I feel like I've heard of seed.
Yeah, I've been taking that for like a year. I like it.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
Honestly, I need to be better about taking my probiotic. Anyway, so other dietary things that have some sort of legs besides eating whole, avoiding processed stuff, eat the whole fucking food. Turmeric. So India has one of the lowest incidences of Alzheimer's in the world, which is pretty
That's
wild.
wild.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. And so there are more studies being done to the efficacy of turmeric. Generally,
It's in a lot of their foods.
yeah, they cook with it constantly, basically. And so there aren't a ton of studies on it. It's kind of another one of those buzzy, trendy things to have turmeric. It
Not like
is,
when acai was like the buzz.
yeah, which I mean, that's just because of like high
Right.
antioxidant foods. But turmeric is, I think there are studies that prove the effects of it in terms of inflammation. So it's interesting to kind of see. So we'll see where that nets out.
Love that.
For Alzheimer's, I thought it was an interesting stat. Magnesium is good. So I know you said you take that. It's very good. I do as well. But you can also get it from leafy greens. Just often you don't eat enough of them.
Any
to
leafy
get them.
greens?
Yeah. I mean, the dark leafy greens. Like I would like iceberg
Not
lettuce.
iceberg lettuce, right? Okay.
Cut it, right. And then vitamin B12, which is primarily animal based. Although if you're vegan, or vegetarian, you can have nutritional yeast, which sometimes I like to do with like popcorn.
Oh yeah, people do that all the time.
Or pasta, yeah. And it actually
So I wonder
packs a punch on the B12 department. Like I used to kind of track what I was eating, so because I was curious about my micronutrient status in terms of the foods I eat, and assuming like my body's absorbing all of the nutrients as it should. Like I had like not even a tablespoon of nutritional yeast with like popcorn, and it was like B12 200%, and I was like, whoa, okay. Yeah, anyway, so that's it. That's really it on the mental health. I'm hopefully going to learn more. I'm going to read this book, but I guess this whole section could have been TLDR'd by just saying pay attention to how you feel after you eat your food, because it has an effect, and eat your healthy fats.
You know what's interesting? You said this to me earlier, but my keratosis pilaris, KP, chicken skin, strawberry skin, whatever you want to call it, on my
I've
arms.
never
Like
heard
it,
strawberry skin. That's almost better to me than chicken skin.
well, it's a little bit different. Like I have strawberry skin on my thighs because it's not necessarily bumpy. Like you don't like feel like it's
Oh,
not
just no,
raised.
it's the visual.
It's the visual of
Mhm.
like you see like it looks more porous. Like you
Yep.
see, you know what
Yep.
I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but like changing my diet has like, I mean, also sort of attribute it to like the clean, like lotions and serums that I put on my arms, but like also the diet, it matters.
100.
If you're not like filling your body full of, high processed things, like you said, it's the way that it's expelling toxins, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah, like
it's not,
I notice like you've given your by eating the way you are, you're giving your liver and your liver especially a break on the detoxification. I literally like I drink and I notice my KP the next morning is
I'll
like
see. I'll see
I'm
how it
like,
goes.
ooh, and I'm
Okay.
anyway, enough about weird shit on our bodies. Enough of that.
Cool. Cool.
Let's talk Enneagram. What number are we on again? What type?
We are on. Oh, fuck.
Did
I
you fuck
totally
it
fucked
up?
this
You
up. I
fucked it
totally
up.
fucked it up. I did. I totally did.
It's okay. My husband's the threeest three. So if you're going to say
Yeah.
three, I'm going to be able to
And I
laugh.
didn't, and I like literally went over, I was going over the deep dive today. I was like, oh, like great. Like, making sure I had everything. And it
Right.
was supposed to be 8 because we were mixing it up.
Well,
But
it's
that
fine.
means I'll do 8 and 7 so that we get back on track. But so
Sounds
yeah,
good to me.
surprise everyone.
Tell me all the things about my crazy husband.
Oh my God, as I was reading it, I was like, Alex, 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 like just going
Just like
through.
like in the dictionary.
Yeah,
Like
in
he
the
should
fucking
be in the
dictionary.
Enneagram Encyclopedia. This is a 3.
I will be so curious to hear your thoughts on which of the 3 subtypes, not his
I know because
wing,
I
but
haven't
like,
really. Okay, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay. So type 3, the bingo, great at first impressions, healthy competition, the magical ability to read a room, multitasking, trendy as fuck. This says AF, but we swear here. Goes hard and then crashes. Quote, what do you mean take weekends off? Works on vacation, designer items, and listens to podcasts on commutes. Does that sound right? Does that
Alex
sound
does
right?
not listen to podcasts.
Ever any?
Hardly ever.
Interesting.
He's too busy in his own mind
I see. Yes.
to, I
Okay.
think, be
That
able
makes
to
sense.
intake anyone else's thoughts.
This is a good. I'm going to ask you this before I read this. How is Alex at an airport?
That's
Like,
a really good
what is he wearing? What is his demeanor? Like, how does he
He's
travel?
well, so that was the other thing that didn't 1000 resonate. Like he's not like designer label
No,
whore. Like he's not the
he's
most.
not trendy.
Yeah, he doesn't. He doesn't really. I mean, he's very vain and he
Okay.
cares what people think about him. And so like
Okay.
he
Yeah.
dresses, but like for the airport, it depends on where we're going. I mean, generally he's in sweats. I mean, I am
Oh,
too.
yeah. Well, right.
He'll like wear sweatpants, but it'll be like his dress sweats.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing is how 3s travel by plane. How on point is my airport look? I look fresh, fierce, and professional, don't I? Yes, my bomb shoes do match my luggage. Thank you for noticing. Um, and this is actually one of my characteristics that Ben points out. He thinks it's so fucking weird. I mean, it is kind of weird. I wear my sunglasses in the airport, and he's like,
Like
"Who the
on.
fuck?" Correct, on my face, like on my eyeballs.
I never
I think
said I'm a badass.
part of it is that my mom wears her sunglasses at all, like except for in the house. Like we would go to church, and like she would be wearing her sunglasses in
So
church.
this is your serial killer quality.
Yeah, you're right. This is
Like
it.
that's weird. Like so it's not like, oh, I'm walking in the airport and I forget my sunglasses are on and then I take them
Correct.
off. You
It's an
are aware.
active choice. It's an
So you
active
keep
choice.
this. And
Correct. Well, like, I
why?
mean, I have to, but like the TSA are like, ma'am, can you please lift your sunglasses?
Why? Is
I
this
don't
like
know.
are you like trying to have a Lindsay Lohan
Well,
moment?
so that's
Like
what Ben says. He's like, who the fuck do
do
you
you
think
think?
you are at this airport? Like, what is happening? And there's a TikTok have you heard of like the main character meme? Have you heard of this?
No.
So it's like basically when you think like it's like a narcissistic moment where you think like the whole world is
Yes,
revolving
okay.
around
Yeah, I think
you
I've
and
seen
like
it. Okay. I didn't
and
know that was
everyone is
like a specific
yeah, so
meaning.
everyone is focusing on what it is that you're doing. That I think that's like me at an airport. I'm wearing sunglasses and I'm like every male under the age of 40 is staring at me. So there's a TikTok that has
Uh,
that thought and then it says what's actually happening and it's like her rolling her luggage with a mask on. Like I was like, yeah, that's
I've
really what I'm
seen
doing.
that. You're like, yeah, it's hot shit, hot girl shit, wearing my sunglasses. All the men love me.
100% and my Lululemon and whatever shirt I'm wearing. And like
I'm
I,
dying. Now I cannot wait to go to an airport with you.
oh
Just because
yeah.
I'm like, what is she thinking? Do I narrate? Like I video
Yeah,
record
you
you,
should.
narrate you at the airport. She thinks
Imagine I
she
don't,
thinks
but
that tall, dark haired man is
imagine if
staring
I
at her
wore
now.
like a hat, like a not like a baseball hat, but like a floppy hat.
No, a baseball hat would be better because
Oh,
that's
I
like
sometimes do wear a baseball
celeb, like celeb.
I sometimes because I when I sleep on the plane, I like keep my sunglasses on and I pull the hat down so it's dark. It's a it's a fucking thing. I'm a
Oh my
delight to
god.
travel with. I also I'm out before the plane takes off. Like I'm
That's annoying.
done.
That's a very annoying quality because I struggle to sleep on planes and I
Right.
resent.
If I'm sitting next to a person that doesn't sleep on a plane, it's super irritating. But if I'm sitting next to a person that
I know
yeah,
why. So I can only sit this now we're getting into airport habits, but I can
okay.
only fucking sit in the aisle seat because I get
Same. So we
pee
will be
anxiety.
across the aisle to each
I get
other.
pee anxiety, but you
That's
you take up the aisle and you sleep? You are a dick. You are the reason why I have to sit in the aisle. Because
but I
I'm
also
like,
have
the
pee
person in the
anxiety.
aisle is for sure gonna just fall fucking asleep and not know when I have to pee, and then I like
I also have pee anxiety.
so
So like
so
if I wake up, I need to be able to get out.
oh, mm, this is the most selfish thing you've ever done. This is your most selfish quality because you're like, I have pee anxiety, but also I'm just gonna sleep. So like, if you guys have pee anxiety, you can fuck right on off.
People have woken me up and I'm like, "Oh, sorry." And then I move.
I know that's what people say about falling asleep on planes. Wake me up, it's no problem. Until you are the person like me that had
I
to
mean, I feel you.
crawl,
I would never wake somebody
crawl
up.
over someone to
Right.
get to the bathroom
Right.
because
People
they
have
would
woken
not
me
wake
up.
up. And I was like, well, I'm gonna piss my pants. So, oh
Yeah,
my god,
that's me. So when we travel together, we will be sitting on like opposite aisles so we can like still chat because like neither of us are giving up the aisle. I'm certainly not sitting in the fucking middle. So
right?
yeah. But like on like 3 row or 3 chair rows, Ben sits in the middle so that he's still next to me. But like
Yeah,
he
I refuse Alex 1000 middle, and then
or like
sometimes
if he ever wanted to, he could like pick another seat, but like I book the flights and then he doesn't do anything. So yeah, no, I'm an actually
you
it
at an
appears that I'm a
airport,
nightmare to travel with.
a creature at an airport. This is amazing. I love this about you.
Um,
This is my favorite thing about you. I'm just gonna say it.
Ben is gonna be so excited to hear this because creature is exactly how he would describe me at an
Like
airport.
a like you are a creature of the whatever fucking world you think you're living in.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
But you pissed me off about the aisle thing.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
But it is your most selfish quality. So there
Yeah,
you go.
that's fine. If that's my most selfish quality, I'll fucking take it. I
Mhm.
haven't done it in a
It is.
year.
It
So,
is your most selfish quality. That's very funny.
okay. We're done talking about how I'm a creature on a plane, but I am a creature. It's yeah, it's my serial killer trait, wearing sunglasses in the airport. I do think that's because of my mom. She does wear her sunglasses inside everywhere other than like our home, like when she goes grocery shopping, when she I mean, I guess I kind of do that too sometimes.
But why?
Like I don't know.
We can talk about this for hours. So that's not. I'm just kind of like, what
What's the
choice?
question?
The choice, and I just don't
Oh.
understand the choice. I'm like, okay, so you're like, oh, my sunglasses are on. Whoops, I'm just gonna leave them on.
Like no, it's a choice. It's a
You
choice.
walk in, and you're like, I'm leaving these bad boys on my face.
Well, like I walk in and I'm like, I'm not taking them off. So like, yeah, like I guess, yeah. I mean, sometimes I do if I like need to see something, like if I need to like read something.
Right, because you're indoors and it gets dark when your sunglasses are on.
Listen, we're done talking about my serial killer trait. Okay.
That is-
Enneagram, yeah. Enneagram 3 is the main name for them is the achiever. They are also called the motivator, the performer, the winner, and the role model. Does that sound all correct
yeah,
to you so far?
yeah, the winner. Uh-huh.
The winner. So they're success oriented, pragmatic, adaptable, driven, excelling, and image conscious. Image
Adaptable,
con-
not so much for Alex.
Interesting.
He doesn't
Okay.
love change,
Interesting.
which I
I actually wonder what.
didn't really know. Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's how I digest or interpret.
No, I agree. I
Yeah.
wonder what they mean by adaptable in that situation. I don't actually know. I will investigate. So they are self assured, attractive, charming, ambitious, energetic. They are, like I said, image conscious, also status conscious, highly driven towards advancement in their career. They are overly concerned about what others think of them and can have problems with workaholism and competitiveness. Is he a competitive person? Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yep. So he
So,
was all of but one thing. So he's
yeah,
like the
the
quintessential.
archetype. Yeah. So the basic fear of a type 3 is of being worthless.
Mm-hmm.
So the basic desire is to feel valuable and worthwhile. And the unconscious childhood message is it's not okay to have your own feelings and identity. Yeah. The unconscious childhood message is always so sad.
Oh, I'm gonna go ask him if he feels that way.
He would definitely tell you no
Yeah.
because he's a
Like,
3.
what do you tie him out?
Right.
Yeah.
Um, so a general overview of a type 3 is they are the stars of human nature and people often look up to them, which is why they're called the role model. They are usually well regarded among their class.
Stars. Sorry, it took me a minute. The stars
Oh
of
yeah,
human
star, like
nature.
celebrity, correct. Um, was he like important and not important, but was he popular in high school?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. He was like
They are
he
usually
played
well
baseball.
regarded and popular among their peers. Examples of being class president or homecoming queen. That's like
I don't
what I
know if he
mean.
was ever any of those things, but
But
anyway.
like still like well liked
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah.
Like people knew who
Um
he was. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. They want to make sure that their lives are a success. However, that is defined by their family culture and social sphere. So like it is totally dependent on what you're surrounded with. It's not like there's one definition of success. It's what does success mean to your family
Mm-hmm.
or your peers, or in your culture. Like it's going to be different for Alex versus like an Indian culture or whatever it is.
Right.
But it's always going to be specific to the culture, which I find interesting. Um, as children, they learn to recognize that activities were valued by their partners or peers, which ones they were valued by their partners and peers, and put energy into excelling at them. So if their parents were like, oh, like it's really important that you are a good athlete, like they're going to
Mm-hmm.
focus on
Mm-hmm.
that or whatever it is.
Or if it's like, is there like if there's positive reinforcement, like, oh, you're really good at that, then they
Probably.
internalize it. Because that's what I
And
feel
they're
like
like,
we do.
"Oh, this is like I need to keep
I
being
get
good at
praise
this."
for this. So yeah.
Right. Right. So the feeling triad, like we talked about with type 2s, they're concerned with self-image, and with 2s, we're projecting our self-image inward. Like we're like we just need to like quietly help people, like whatever. 3s do it both ways. They project an image outward and then they have like their internal battle where they're like I need to be this person for
Yeah.
me.
Okay.
Their social style is assertive, which means this is the first assertive one we have. It's 3, 7, and 8 are all the assertive. They are moving against people, which means they are ego oriented and expansive, and they respond to stress by building up or inflating their ego and have issues processing their feelings. Which, yeah, that sounds like.
Probably.
I mean, it's like obviously it's very generic overview of that
No,
part, but
that resonates.
coping style is competency, which is 1, 3, and 5, which like very much checks out. They deal with difficulty by putting aside their personal feelings and striving to be objective, effective, and competent.
Mm-hmm.
and they put their subjective needs on the back burner to solve the problem at hand logically.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound right?
Yep.
Cool. Cool. I will be
Cool, cool,
interested.
cool, 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 cool.
I think I know which wing he is, but you can tell me when we're done with
Oh,
the
yeah.
wings.
Okay.
Okay, so the wings are 3-wing 2 is the charmer. They are more emotional and spontaneous than the 3-wing 4. They can resemble a 7, which I found interesting.
Mm-hmm.
They are friendly, helpful, and generous like 2s, but they maintain self-esteem and poise and like the level of excellence of 3s. They want others to like and admire them, and they know how to turn it on to impress. And they're highly competitive. Examples are the 3s. I can't even explain to you the amount of people in this world that are 3s that are famous. I mean, it makes sense, but
Makes
like
sense.
examples of 3-wing 2s are Bill Clinton, Elvis, and Paul McCartney.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. So the 3-wing 4 is the professional. They want their work to be outstanding and well regarded. They are more serious and task oriented than 3-wing 2s. They aspire to embody perfectionism to avoid being rejected or seen as inferior. They feel they're putting their entire self worth on the line with every project that they do. And they may display pretentiousness and arrogance mixed with self consciousness.
I think so. 3-wing 2 resonates quite a bit for him, but I think that he also I don't know, he might be somewhat
So maybe
balanced.
balanced wings.
He might be balanced because he does have this perfectionist, like everything I do needs to be perfect mentality.
Right.
And so like that resonates. And then, but the 2, like being a charmer and like knowing how to turn it on, like that very much. But I think if he says all the time, like it's a part of his job to do what he does. I think if he had a choice, I sometimes wonder, like, would he be as
It
social,
is very much a part of his job.
gregarious, right?
Yeah.
If he didn't have to be. So
Yeah.
I wonder if he's balanced,
Well,
but
some examples of 3-wing 4s are Oprah, Madonna, Michael Jordan, and Whitney Houston. Like
so
not
cool.
some casual people.
Yeah, not casual.
Okay, so here are the 3 instinctual variants. The self-preservation instinctual variant is called workaholic or the security oriented. They are workaholics, obviously, and are the most removed from their feelings. Their security comes from money, assets, and a stable home. They strive for efficiency and streamlining their lives as much as possible. They're motivated by the possibility of advancement, and other aspects of their lives become second to work, i.e., like they're not going to be able to relax on vacation or like what's a weekend or whatever. Social is the status seeker slash quote prestige. They have superhuman radiance and they are better with people than the self-preservation subtype. They can look like 7s occasionally. They are natural social climbers. They need recognition and reassurance that they are moving up the social ladder and that they're valued by their peers. They are the most aggressive subtype. All awards are important to them. And then the last like sentence of the whole thing was they are like keeping up with the Joneses personified. I was like, oh, okay.
Okay. All right.
And the last one, the sexual type 3, is the catch slash charisma. They are less worried about big picture workplace or people, and they're just looking for that perfect friend, partner, teammate, the one person. They thrive in one-on-one situations. They are more relational than vocational when it comes to their goals. They're going to focus more on their relationships with people than they are in their career. They work at developing and appealing to people. They have like an alluring image where it's like sort of a little bit like mysterious versus just like charming.
Yeah.
They want this would be like the stereotypical trophy wife. They want to be like, or trophy husband. They want to be shown off by their partner and be like their partner to be like, look at who I have. They
Right.
like
Look how
want to be,
impressed. Yeah.
yeah. Model or movie stars that are unhealthy sexual 3s can be caught up in promiscuity, is what it said, which I thought was really interesting.
So Alex
That makes
is
me want.
definitely self-preservation.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
1,000. Like 100%, like no question.
Not a question at all. Okay, so like we did with all the other types, we don't go through each individual level of development. 1 through 3 is healthy, 4 through 6 is average, 7 through 9 is unhealthy, like the deeply dysfunctional. And I have all of like the words that are associated with that in the document, so you can look at it on the website later. But everybody's favorite parts, the in stress and in health types. So what's really interesting about the 3, 6, 9 grouping is that they are a like not an unbreakable triangle. I don't know how to describe it, but for example, 2s go to 8 in stress,
Okay.
and 8s go to 2 in health. So like those are reciprocal,
Okay. Yeah.
but they don't have the same other one. Like
Yeah. Okay.
so, I go to 4 in health and 8s go to 5 in stress. So like it's not all the
Yes.
same,
Yeah.
but for 3, 6, 9 it is. They all
Oh,
switch.
it's an intermingling situation.
It's all intermingled. So in health, deceitful 3s become more cooperative and committed to others like healthy 6s. 6s are all about like stability, loyalty, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
3s become more actualized and remain healthy by learning to commit to others and to goals that transcend their own interests. And healthy 3s find deep satisfaction and feelings of worth in selfless acts that they perform. So, like a little bit more altruism.
Mm-hmm.
But in stress, driven 3s suddenly become disengaged and apathetic at 9. They still want to stand out from the pack, but not too much. They lower their profile and try to blend in with others rather than be efficient. They fill their time with busy work and routines.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound right?
Not right.
Yeah, okay. You're going to die when I tell you like the other examples that weren't listed as wings.
Okay.
You ready? Caesar, Constantine. Like, yes, that Caesar and that Constantine. Prince William, Condoleezza Rice, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Muhammad Ali, Andy Warhol,
Wow.
O.J. Simpson,
Whoa.
Tiger Woods, Lance Armstrong, Lady Gaga,
Oh,
Taylor Swift, Justin Bieber, Reese Witherspoon. And I wrote on the document and on and on and on and on. I could have listed 30 more. Like, it
wow.
is just
That's pretty wild.
It's star-studded. It's really star-studded. The other type that I've noticed actually is 7. That is very star-studded.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty wild.
3s are superstars.
And I'm sure they love to think of themselves that way as well, which is like, that's all I can think about is I'm like, they love also that we're calling them superstars.
I know, I mean, it makes sense because I'm an attorney. I know so many 3s. So many of my friends are 3s.
Really?
Like, not like people on Bookstagram that I know. 2 is like a very common Bookstagram type. But like in my life, so many of my friends are 3s, which like checks out. But it's something. It's really something.
That's pretty funny.
So that's the type 3. And I'm so sorry to 8s that we're just like waiting around. I feel bad, but I literally didn't even think about it until you were like, so what's the type? Where are we? And I was like, yep, it was supposed to be 8. So I will do 8 and then 7 so that we're back on. We're back on schedule.
Perfect.
So great. Excellent. We will upload the document.
Yes, we'll
and
share
by we, I
that
mean
on the
below.
website. I don't even know if anyone's accessing it.
Right. Does anyone look at the website?
No.
Does anyone know we have a website?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Being realistic, probably.
Before we get into what are we reading and watching in our book, can we just like quickly comment on the inauguration happened? Nothing happened.
Yeah, that was great.
And Amanda Gorman is now a superstar.
Amanda Gorman is
like just grace personified.
Right, 100%. She was incredible, and
I just want to listen to her talk all day.
Yes, and like her rhythm and cadence, I was like, is she gonna start rapping? I was like, is this gonna be? I was like, shit, like this is it.
She could have.
For anyone who like was unsure about poetry, like hearing her read her own poetry was super powerful, and it also gives you like a semblance of like, I don't know, like, oh, this is maybe how I can read and engage with poetry.
Right. You expect like now that you hear her talk and you hear her how she's reading the poetry, you can like look at a book of poetry and be like,
and get it a little more. Yeah, like 100%. And I was reading something kind of cool, an interview with her that Vogue did where so Maya Angelou in her past had also done an inaugural poem. And
Really? I love that so
Oprah,
much.
I guess, bought her a jacket and like gloves or something at the time when
Maya
she did that.
Angelou?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so Oprah had been in contact with Amanda Gorman and bought her stuff too.
Oh,
Like it was like
I love that so
earrings, I
much.
think, or a ring. And like Amanda was like, every time Oprah texts me, I like fall on the floor. It
Right,
was a very cute. It
obviously.
was the Vogue interview with her. I thought was really good, and it's shocking to me that she's only 22.
Yeah, 22.
But
22.
she's funny because she, I think, very specifically made outfit choices, and like she's a fashion's like a
Oh,
fun
yeah.
for her. So I think it's yeah,
Incredible. I
she
was
was
so happy. I literally didn't know we had a national poet laureate
same.
or a youth national poet laureate.
I
I had
didn't
no
even
fucking idea.
honestly really know that there was an inaugural poem every year. Like,
Oh,
to be
same.
fair.
Yeah, I
No
actually
clue.
didn't either because normally I only like watch the swearing in part and then I'm like, okay, bye.
Right.
Like,
Right.
that's it.
Exactly.
And I didn't even watch that much for
No, she was
2016. So,
incredible.
yeah.
I'm really glad she's getting all the positive attention she's getting. Did you know this? She was signed with IMG Models.
No.
I think it's IMG. Gigi Hadid like posted, I'm obsessed with Hadids, but Gigi Hadid posted on her Instagram stories like, "Welcome to the family, Amanda Gore." Like I think she's pretty sure she got signed.
Like post this.
Post this.
I love that so
Is
much.
that kind
I
of
love
cool?
that
And
so
like for a
much.
girl who like, I mean, she's clearly got brains, but if she like
Right.
enjoys fashion and like that sort of
Right. That's the avenue that she
self-expression,
wants to take.
she
Right.
also, I learned in this Vogue interview, struggled with a speech impediment.
Yep. I knew that, which is
And
incredible.
so cool because I think the parallels to Biden's own struggles are really cool. But I think it's so interesting that poetry, I don't know, she kind of alludes to this in the interview, like poetry helped her get through that because you can get a
Yeah.
rhythm and a cadence and you can build that. So I don't know. I think it's
So
super interesting.
apparently, so she said the same thing in her interview with Anderson Cooper that I watched.
Yeah.
And apparently it's her R's. And if she wouldn't have said that, I literally never, I couldn't
Oh,
hear it.
now I'm gonna go back and watch. I have no idea.
Ben was like, I can hear it. I was like, no, you fucking can't. I literally, once I knew I was listening and I was like, I
Yeah.
don't know what you're talking about. So,
So cool. She's just
yes,
a badass.
we
Good for
love her. She has a book coming out in September, which I hope everyone is pre-ordering.
her. Mm-hmm.
I will, it's not that I'm on a book buying ban, but I'm like using the library. But this one I will be buying.
Right. I mean, when I say
Um,
book buying ban, I mean it not to not support authors, but like because I'm too overwhelmed with my stacks. So people
correct.
just know that when I say that I'm on a book buying ban, it's because
Well, and to be clear, going into what are we watching and reading last time I was in the middle of Eudora Honeyset.
uh-huh.
Oh my God, it's the fucking best.
Yeah, okay.
It's
I
so
can't
good.
wait.
It's so cute. Like, and cute is like maybe the wrong word. I've never read A Man Called Ove, but like people compare the two of them because it's like old person befriends young person.
Yes, okay.
But like it was just fucking precious. And like I'm not even like a precious kind of book person. Like it's not my jam. I
I don't
kid you
seek
not.
out Precious.
No, I don't. Which like to be perfectly honest, when I was on like a list of free books I could have gotten and I chose not to get it. Like there was I could pick four and it was not one of the four that I picked. Um the last 50 pages, I was hysterical. And
I
like it
love that. I love to cry.
like it was like the most cathartic cry because it wasn't like it
Uh,
was like sad. I don't want to like give too much away.
right.
It wasn't like it was like sad. It was like beautiful, like
Yes.
like
Right.
truly just like
Like just
beautiful
moved
and
you. Very moving.
correct. I'm talking like the ugly snot cry.
Mhm.
Like I was full snot face. It was so good. There isn't like I don't even want to put an Enneagram type on like who will love it. I think everyone should fucking read it. And I also don't want to call it a palate cleanser because it stands on its own, but like obviously if you're reading something incredibly heavy, like it would be a great one to pick up after just because it's
Ooh,
like
yeah,
just
okay.
it will warm
I love
you.
a cry. You know me.
Yeah. It's a good it's so good.
I'm
So
trying to get back to my I think prior to coming on Instagram and doing the whole bookstagram thing, I was reading a lot more literary fiction.
yeah, that's your jam.
It's typically my jam, and I kind of like stepped away from that a bit. And so 2021, I'm trying to do kind of return to those roots a little bit, mainly because I feel like they're challenging in a different way.
Yeah.
And I just feel like but every once in a while, to your point about palate cleansers, it's so necessary to have something on hand that you can like, just like kind of like breeze through. Cause I'm reading something now that I've started and stopped one other time. Cause it just was like, what is happening? My brain is not here for it, but I'm getting through it so slowly. Like I read so much slower, but I'm like, it's just activating totally different parts of my brain. And so I'm
For sure.
kind of
I
trying
mean,
to
literary fiction is not like not that we have like opposite tastes in books, but like you and I are very easily able to tell like this is a low book, this is a Jamie
yes,
book.
100%.
Like
Yeah.
it's very easy for us to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is an everyone book. Like
Yeah.
I would be floored if someone was like,
Is
yeah,
it
I
a
fucking hated
debut
it.
author?
No, her
No.
name is Annie Lyons.
Okay.
I do not know what else she has written, but
Okay.
this is not her first book.
Okay.
It
Cool.
was just,
Will
it was
you read?
precious.
Do you like the author so much you would try to see what else she wrote?
Yeah, I
Okay.
do.
Cool.
I
Love
mean,
that.
I imagine that like her writing style is the same, even if the story is different. So yeah, like, and it wasn't like her writing style was like so unique,
Right.
right? Like it wasn't like, oh, Frederick Bachman, where you like can tell
But
that it's
she's
a
like a
different,
storyteller. Good. I mean, a good
yeah,
storyteller.
good
Is a good
storyteller.
storyteller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, it was excellent. And it was so funny because even when we have a couple friends that were recommending this book to us, and even with their like glowing recommendations, I was like, though, like, will I even like, I was like, I'm going to read it because like they said,
Right.
but like, I was like, will I? And now I'm just like, I'm a fucking idiot.
Oh, well, that's so
So I
fun. I
finished
love that.
that. I am still reading the Book of Longings because I am a waste of space. I may still be in the same spot that I was in when we last talked. Not because it's not good, but like I read our book for this, I finished Eudora, and I think I'm like 30 pages in. And the 30 pages I've read, I really like. I just like
Yeah,
I don't know.
I really enjoyed that book actually. I really liked
Yeah.
that
So
female
it's not a
protagonist.
matter of I think literally the second I put the label buddy read on it, which is what it was, I like I can't. I'm like, "Oh, I shouldn't read that one."
Oh, so I'm being held accountable. Let me not.
Correct. Like Chelsea, one of our friends was like, uh, or we had talked about buddy reading, and she was like, "How far are you?" I'm 150 pages in. I was like, "Oh, I haven't started." And by the time I like picked up the book, she had already finished and like reviewed it. And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, it's my fault. Like, I just like wasn't
You'll have
doing
a
it."
buddy whenever you're finished. No, I liked that one a lot. I very few times I'm like that female protagonist is I'm about it. I really liked that whole
You
storyline.
normally don't like female protagonists.
Well, I guess it's just rare that like they're a female protagonist that I remember. Like she's very
Oh,
memorable.
interesting.
Like I
Have
remember
you,
like Jane Eyre, like a lot,
have
like
you
Jane
read
Eyre.
Girl with a Louding Voice? No, you haven't.
I have. Yes, I have. Yeah.
So is Adunni one of them?
Yeah. 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 I would say it's Anna, right, from the Book of Longings. Is that the protagonist? I think it is Anna. Anna. No,
Is that the aunt's name? No.
no.
You might be
Anyway,
right.
she I think is ahead of a Dunny for me. A Dunny.
Adunni.
A Dunny.
Two N's.
Two N's. Okay, sorry. I had to.
Yeah.
I mean, I read it so long ago.
Right, fair.
But yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah, so and part of it was like when it came out, like I was afraid of the bookstagram hype. Like, we all go through that phase where like I think you didn't read Vanishing Half for a long time because of it.
Very long time. Yeah.
I didn't read Girl with the Louding Voice for a long time because of it. Like it just like when you see it everywhere, part of me is like, ugh, I cannot read it. Like it can't be this good.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I like jump right in and it's a book that's all over and I'm like, oh, I will be picking this up immediately. But that happened to me with Book of Longings. It was, when it came out and it was like a book of the month pick, everyone was like, oh, we gotta like read this. And there were a bunch of book clubs. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I will not be doing that.
I know that's part of the issue though. Although sometimes with Bookstagram hype, I'm like, maybe I should read it because then I won't like it won't get I don't know, will it get ruined less if I just like bite the bullet and do it?
Unclear. I can't remember. Did you like The Vanishing Half?
I did not
love it.
right.
Liked it.
Like I wasn't like, yeah, I really liked it. I wasn't like dropping all over the floor. Like I felt like everyone was like, oh my God, best book ever.
Yeah. Well, it's on my shelf. So I'm like, obviously,
yeah,
I kept it. So
yeah.
It was like one of my tops of last year. Yeah, that's just how we both are sort of like the same way where we're like, oh, it has hype. We must avoid it at all.
Red alert. Caution.
I wonder how much a part of my resistance to there's this fantasy series that's literally every single person on Bookstream I feel like has read it. It's A Court of Thorns and Roses, and it's a series, and it's like it's a famous thing. I read the first book and it was fucking whatever. It was literally just nothing. And I've read 70 pages of the second book. I literally read 70 pages like 4 months ago.
Before
But
the Book of Longings still.
oh, this was months
Oh,
ago.
okay.
Months ago. Uh put the book down and literally never picked it back up again. And so today I posted and was like, so like don't hate me, but like I read 70 pages of this book in September and never picked it up again. Like, should I do it? Is
Right,
it worth
right.
it? And of course you have the camp of like, don't believe the hype. And then you have the camp of like, oh my God, this is the best of the series. You must push through. And I have like not decided what I'm going to do yet.
I just can't, like, I don't know.
Well, it's also big and you know my fear.
Oh,
It's
it's big.
huge.
Yeah.
It's a chunker. So we'll see. Part of truly the reason that I'm like inclined to read it, most people have said, or some people have said, if you finish the second one and you don't like it, then don't continue. Because there's three
Got
more.
it. So they say just give the second one a chance before you.
Because they say that the second one is so much better than the first one. So I was like, okay. But there's so much FOMO for me, like a lame person around this series, because I feel like so many of our friends talk about this series.
Really? I don't notice.
Not because I think it's like particularly like amazing literature,
Yeah.
but like so many people have read it and it's like a culty thing. So I'm like, oh, I'm like missing out on something.
It's funny that you say everyone talks about it. I have no idea. I'm
I
like,
think
they
is
do?
it the same author
I'm like
that
probably missing so many references. And
is
I'm
it the
like,
same author as Six of Crows?
I don't remember the author for that.
Oh, fair. Okay.
But
So
I mean, maybe it might
um
be. I don't
so
know.
that's where I'm at. I don't know if I'm gonna finish it. Well, jury's still out. I need to go back and like read everyone's comments, but like the general consensus, other than like, yes, it's amazing, and like, no, don't do it, is like, if you don't like this one, then
Right.
can the rest of them.
Okay.
So
Well, we'll see. You
we'll
let us
see.
know. You let us know.
I will. So did you read anything else? I mean, I know you're reading a bunch of health books, but did you read anything else besides our book?
Well, I'm reading this book. It's called Flights by Olga. Her last name is, she's Polish, I believe.
Okay.
And so I'm not, it's like
Gonna
a
try.
12 letter last name that
Yep.
I'm
All
not going to be able
consonants
to
for
pronounce.
sure.
She wrote Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead.
Oh, yes.
That author. Yes.
Ben loved that book. I've never read it, but he said it was amazing.
Yeah. So I read that. I liked it. It was super interesting. I mean, once again, it's a literary fiction piece. So I was like intrigued by the author, and this book I think it was published in 2007, I want to say, and it
The one that you're reading now?
yes, and it won the Booker Prize.
Oh,
So that's kind of part of my literary fiction thing, is trying to get back into the Booker world a little bit more and like read. I have a bunch on my shelf from this past year, but
yep.
so I'm getting through that. It's one of those ones where I think I stopped it the first time I started because it's unclear, like, if there are clearly multiple characters, but you don't really have names for anyone. So it's like a multiple character, no names, and it like they're woven together. And so sometimes you're like, oh, is this character telling the story of this character? And like, who knows?
That really overwhelms me.
Yes, I'm like probably halfway through, maybe a little bit over. And so I'm like clearly like intrigued by like what's going on. It's kind of, the general theme is like permanence and travel and like existing in the world and all these wild themes. And so
Interesting.
Who knows?
Would I like her other book?
It's definitely more of a plot than what I'm reading now.
I was going to say, I would be surprised if Ben was like a diehard literary fiction reader.
It's interesting. It's interesting. It's like, and it's short. It's quick. It's not that long. You may as well give it you might give it a shot. I mean,
he said it to me, and then I like sort of it dropped off my radar because
he listened to it.
Yeah, he listened to it.
Got it. Yeah, it would be interesting to listen to. I think there's kind of an interesting like astrology element that I kind of like. No, it was good. I would say. I mean, I haven't completed this book yet, obviously.
Right.
But I don't know which one I'll like more, because she's a really beautiful writer. Like you can tell, like she's very talented. I'm just trying to figure out what the fuck is happening.
That's fair. Yeah, that is, if I'm like halfway through a book and I'm still like, who's talking? Yeah, you're not getting, like,
Yeah. Like
I'm
I'm
not,
exercising my brain trying to like, they tell you like read something difficult. Like it's almost like reading a classic where you're like, oh God, what is
oh yeah,
happening? So no, this isn't obviously quite as hard as that, but it's a similar, you know, just
vibe.
sort of, yeah, just like changing it up from like plot to like, okay, what is like trying to figure it out.
I feel
So
that.
yeah, so it's
I'm
interesting.
not as sophisticated. Like I literally, when I say like, oh, I'm like more plot driven than character driven, it literally makes me feel like a plebe. I'm
No,
like
it's
the
not at
least.
all. It's not at
Well,
all.
because it's because, like literary
I couldn't
fiction
even
is
call
very
this.
smart.
No, but I couldn't even call this a character study. Like I guess it is, but like it's like there's also a gray. I don't know. I wouldn't feel that way. Honestly, also like a lot of people, and as you should, read for pure fucking pleasure and like
Right.
relaxation and not to fucking intellectually challenge yourself at every minute, which I adore reading for. I mean, I love that. I just, for some reason, I'm obsessed with my brain lately. And
You're
I'm like,
obsessed with masochism and you're like, I must challenge myself at all
no, I'm like,
parts.
my brain must stay fucking healthy. I need to do it. And,
Mm,
here I go. Like
yes,
Alex
I
and I
know
were
this.
like
Yep.
playing chess the other night. Like, what?
All
So,
right, Queen's Gambit.
yes. Yeah.
So is that the
Watch his
only
Queen's Gambit one time.
one time? Yeah. So is that your only other read besides your 3 health books and our book?
Yeah, that's basically
All
it.
right, let me pick this bad boy up. Hello. I know you can't if you're not watching the video. Look at okay, so I've gotten off the washi tape and I'm now doing these like really thin tabs
Mm-hmm.
because the washi tape, if I ever wanted to remove it, if I was like giving
Rip
the
the
book to
page.
somebody or whatever, it rips the page.
Oh, I thought the
So
whole
this is
thing about washi tape was that it was supposed to not destroy.
I thought that also, but I think maybe book pages are too thin. Like maybe it wouldn't do it to like a piece of loose leaf or like a bullet journal page.
So this is
But
the only book that I started highlighting in the beginning. And
yeah,
then I was like, you know what? I'm going to put this in my little free library because here's my comment about this book. I just think it's so accessible.
it's so accessible. Oh,
So,
by the way, it's Uncomfortable Conversations with the Black Man. I
yes,
feel like you just picked this book
sorry.
as this was our January pick that we read together. Yeah,
Basically, we choose books that like live on our shelves that we haven't read yet, essentially.
right. Which like we do for as different as our taste is, we do have a lot of overlap.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I feel like
Yeah.
we can both, yeah, we're 100% aligned.
But this is extremely accessible.
Like I describe it, and I've written my review for this. I haven't posted it yet, but I describe it as like literally, it's like a snack, like a little
Yeah.
snack, like a history snack, where it's like you're getting knowledge and you're learning and
In
you're
little
able to
snippets.
contextualize, right? And like you get examples, but like it's not like overwhelming, like
No, it's like 200
like
pages.
Kendi, Professor Kendi
Right.
would write like dense, like a history book.
Correct.
So, and I just think, and I write this also in my review, it's it should not be his responsibility to do this, but I think the way he speaks to white people, like so many people would like it would resonate, like they would
Right.
actually listen and actually like maybe try to listen to what he's saying. Part of it, I'm like, this is a perfect husband book. Like if you need your husband to be
Ooh.
all up in this, like perfect husband book. And I don't know if it's because he was a professional athlete and like men respect that, but like for some reason I just feel like men in particular would
Yeah.
get it. Like they would be like, oh, okay, like this would like resonate a lot. So for me at times I was like, as a white person who's read a handful of other books, like I wouldn't put this high on the list of like this spoke to me. And I don't
Right.
know if it's because, or like,
Yes.
am I the audience? Like, I felt like obviously I'm the audience because I'm a white person, but I just for some reason felt like I, I don't know. But
No, I
do you know what I'm
understand
saying?
exactly what
I'm
you're
trying
saying.
to
Yes.
articulate.
We have in our anti-racism journey read like a decent number of books, and obviously that's like not the whole thing, but we have gained at least bigger amount of knowledge than we had going in.
Right.
So this, and I don't want to like, this is not meant in like a negative way, but it's a more basic
Yes.
understanding
It's like
of
a
what,
foundational, like
right,
very easy to digest.
intro.
Yes. Yeah.
It's intro to anti-racism,
Right.
basically.
Yeah.
I would kind of categorize it in a more broad type book like White Fragility, where it's like pretty basic, like you're getting like basic terms and basic knowledge, but this obviously expands on more than just White Fragility.
Right.
But yeah, that's how sort of how I feel. If you've never really read an anti-racism book, if this is like you're hearing this and you're like, oh, maybe I should start an anti-racism journey, this is a good book to just like pick up.
Yeah, it's
And
a really good foundational book. He's got a really great way of, like I said, communicating, and he's got a really important voice. What I especially loved about this book, I actually, because I'm going to put it in my little free library, but I took a photo of the final pages where he has all the resources like podcasts and
so
movies.
good.
He has great additional resources, which I was like, oh, that this is different.
Every chapter.
Yeah. And I was like, this is what makes me feel like this book is different, because now I'm like, okay, I can continue and like deep dive on these certain areas that he talked about. But I also think what he did that was super important in a couple of places was reframed the conversation. And he did it in a way that made speaking about these things like inherently empathetic. Like if you say, like, example, it's a very vague what I'm saying, but example, referring to them as slaves versus the enslaved.
Right.
Like how the reframing of like even just saying that word differently like makes it like, oh wow, okay, they were forced into this position. Like this was like it inherently builds
You aren't a
empathy.
slave, you were enslaved.
Yes.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
like it inherently builds that empathy and like reframes it in the speaker's mind, I think. And so it's a really great, he does that in a handful of places. And I thought that was really amazing as well, like calling that out. Cause like we like words, like they fucking matter,
Yeah.
like words matter. And so I really appreciated a lot of what he did here and the intricacies. My number one takeaway was, what is time? Like he wrote and published this
I
in the
can't.
middle of a pandemic.
I fucking
Like the
can't.
pandemic, what did it start? March in earnest. Like we were like in lockdown in March, and like this, like what? Like I'm like,
So I have a bunch of these tabs. I like wanted to touch on a couple. I think the first tab is that he referenced COVID-19 and I was like, I am not ready for this. We're talking there's a book that is published that's talking about
written and published
COVID-19.
in its entirety in the
Yeah.
span of less than 1 year.
Was really not prepared for that. Something that I also thought was really interesting was at the beginning of every chapter, he had like this snippet of like an email that he had gotten from a white person. And like some of them were like better questions than others, like not trying to like judge, but some of them were like, articulated better. But some of them I could like feel like could be coming from your racist uncle.
100%.
Like
Which
where
is
it's like,
maybe why I feel like this is so accessible too. Because like he's not calling any of these questions dumb. He's using them in his fucking
no, he's
book.
using them.
So
Right.
like I feel like it's a very welcoming. And again, I struggled when I was writing my review about this because I was like, it's not his fucking job to be hand-holding white people, but he does it really well. Like he does, like
I'm going to say something controversial and I don't mean it for it to be controversial. How did you feel about the chapter on interracial relationships?
that was an interesting one. It was almost like when I read Kendi first kind of educated me on Black people being racist.
Yeah.
I had the same sentiment where I was like, oh wow, this can, okay. All right. It was,
right.
I understand why you're asking the question because kind of I don't think it ruins it, but he kind of reflects on interracial relationships.
Like he doesn't
and
like
asks
them
them,
really.
and asks them to reflect.
Right.
And like,
well, and it's interesting. And it's like, because it goes both ways, right? Like he's asking not only the white person to reflect, why are you trying to date a Black person?
Yeah.
But he's asking the Black person, like, why are you going for a white person? What is wrong with, Black people that you want to date? Like, why would you have to go outside of your race? And I thought like I was already primed for that chapter because I follow someone on Bookstagram who is in an interracial marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And she like obviously really didn't like it, especially because he apparently has no experience with an interracial relationship. So she was like, this seems like a weird place for him to be. This was her perspective. Yeah. Obviously she's in an interracial marriage.
Yeah.
So I was like sort of primed for that when I like went into the chapter, but I was like, oh, like it maybe won't be as like jarring, but it jarred me. I was like,
it did feel like he didn't need to.
Right.
But yeah.
I mean, he's obviously, of course, allowed to have that opinion. Like
no,
it's not.
But it is, you're kind of right. Because it almost like it felt like he'd had like some sort of trauma behind that.
Right. Like why? Like it was like a strong opinion.
He had a very strong opinion. Yeah.
Right. I mean, just if you aren't going to read it, basically he was he essentially asked the reader, or he was saying, if you're going to be in an interracial relationship, he says, when
Oh,
I
for
see a
flag.
black man with a white woman or a white woman with a black man, it's not so much that it bothers me as it makes me curious. When I see them, I think, how did you all end up here? um and then he also says, if I'm honest, sometimes it's like, was a black man not good enough for you, black woman? Or was a black woman not good enough for you, black man? And I mean, I understand the sentiment,
Hmm.
but then it's all like, and it's not about, obviously, like colorblind is not like the term you want to use, but it's like, do you not want to promote an interracial
I
relationship?
wonder, you know what it makes me think of? There was a book I read, oh God, which one is it? Oh, Why I'm Not Talking to White People About Race. And she's
Yeah. Okay. I
British.
haven't read it yet.
Yeah, she's from the UK.
She's British, right? Yeah.
And
Okay.
some of the stats she uses are, the UK, like people think from the outside looking in that we're like post-racial society in some ways. Like they're like, oh, because look, like you do. I mean, when you go to Europe, like even in France, like you see so many interracial couples, like so many more than you do in the US, or at least that I noticed.
Right.
Um, but I wonder if part of his thing about it, I guess, because part of her point was like, are we doing racism in the progress towards like having like less racism perpetuating our society and disservice by this outside looking in picture perfect of like, oh, look at, but I'm married to a black man, or but
The blended family. Oh, I have a blended family. I can't be
right,
racist.
right, exactly, where even if they're not having conversations about that, right, like
Right.
you don't know like what's happening in the family unit, like are they talking about racism, is that a thing, or like is it just like everyone kind of perceives that
Oh, they
everything's
must not be
fine,
racist
right?
because,
So
right.
maybe his, and he didn't
That's a good point.
articulate this, but maybe his issue with it is like more so, are you guys talking about it, or
Right.
are we like, is this black man marrying the white woman perpetuating because he thinks this is the, like, are you being, which
Yeah.
again, it's not his place necessarily to like, I did think it was a little bit much for him to be like, evaluate your relationships, because that's kind of how it felt.
Well, right. And that's what the girl that I know, like I can't imagine like as a white woman reading it with a black husband and she's like, "What do you mean evaluate my relationship?"
It
Like,
was a very strong for him to say. I think he probably could have, but that's kind of where my mind went. I was like, oh, I'm wondering if he just like thinks that like important conversations are not being had simply because there's this veil of like, oh, we're post rate, like whatever, like
right.
we're good.
Yeah, that's
And like
totally
we still need
possible.
to be educating our children. Like there need to be these conversations. So like maybe that, I don't know. Like that's kind of
Yeah, but I like read the chapter and like because I was sort of looking for it, I was like, "Oh." And then I was like, "Oh." Like she wasn't kidding. Like
yeah.
it was a thing. So yeah, I would actually love if we have any black listeners and anyone that follows me on Bookstore, I would like love a outside perspective on like how that reads to you and if there's
Hmm.
maybe something that I'm missing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love
Yes,
that.
please. That would be so interesting, actually, to like, even if you haven't read the book, if you own it, read that fucking
Right.
section and
Right.
call it.
There were a couple other things I thought were super interesting. He listed the things that were demanded by Martin Luther King in like the civil rights
Hmm.
era
Hmm.
and how much of them are still not
Still
here.
relevant. I know.
Like
That
it's
was
just it
wild.
was like what have we accomplished in the last 60 years? Nothing, very little.
Well, not to
Like
mention, like 60 years is not that long.
no, it's really
I mean,
not.
it's a really fucking long time, but I think you did this when it was MLK Day. You were like, they show us pictures in black and white to make us feel
Yep,
like it was hundreds of years ago. It was not. Here
correct.
are the
Yeah,
color versions. So like that kind of eye-opening too. It's like,
for sure. And even Ben, who is like not one to like applaud my social justice posts. He just like he's very much like you're a performative asshole. Um, but he even messaged me and was like, "Oh, this is a good
it was
post.
good. It
Like
was
this
really
is
good. Yeah.
like it just makes you think." But one other thing that isn't related to necessarily the book at all, but he wrote about he was talking about like riots and
Yes.
riots versus rebellions,
Hmm.
and I don't know exactly when this book was published, but it was obviously in 2020. Um, And he said, in Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898, a 2,000 strong mob of white supremacists armed with rifles and pistols staged the only coup on American soil.
The only.
I read that and I was like, oh, here's a fun fact. Now there's two. Like,
Yeah, that's actually, I didn't even think about that. No,
that's
I
like
mean,
what I read.
this came out in October, didn't it? I don't think it says. I just tried to look, but
Yeah,
I
I
feel
don't
like it was
like it came
October.
out in 2020. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, like,
Yeah, it came out in
January.
2020 before that happened.
Right.
You know that.
So like for him, like, to even mention like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, this is the only coup that's ever happened on American soil by Americans was 1898. And then January 6th fucking rolls around. Like that is just unbelievable to me. 2020, 2021 and 1898. Like, are you fucking kidding?
Yeah.
Are you kidding? Yeah.
That's
So
wild.
all in all, I do think it's a good foundational, quick read, especially if you've never read any anti-racism books. And also if you watch, this was based on a YouTube series that he was doing. So if you watch, I'm sure a bunch of people have seen his YouTube series and not realize like who he was or that there was a book related to that. So I think it's I think it's a good
great.
one.
And it honestly makes me, now that you mentioned that chapter about interracial marriages or relationships, it makes me want to watch. Is that it was Rachel Lindsay, right? From The Bachelor that he had on. I kind of want to see if that's an episode. I kind of want to see like her reaction.
Right. I also agree.
Maybe I'll watch that.
For anyone that doesn't know, she's in an interracial marriage. And so is Tayshia.
And he didn't in the book talk too much about her, like he mentions, he mentions that they had them on, and that was like the context of like this conversation. But like he doesn't mention like anything else she says. So I'm kind of like, oh, okay, well, let's see.
Yeah, I mean, and Tayshia is engaged to a white guy, and I would be pretty surprised if Matt James did not end up with a white girl.
Yeah.
I think Michelle is my only would be my only prediction. But yeah.
And so I like Chelsea. But
oh my God, I'm obsessed with Chelsea. She's not winning.
She's not winning, but I was so glad when she got her rose because I was like, I'm glad they like showed their connection a little bit because I was like, oh, good. He likes her. I think she's so rad.
Yeah. I fucking love her.
Also, who I'm kind of curious about, this is distracting, kind of curious about Kit.
She's 21. She's clearly just on there to like hang, right?
I thought when she first walked out of the limo, I was like, oh, they're going to make her like the villain.
Oh, but I also thought
actually, I think she's friends with Chelsea, which I'm like, okay, so they like vibe. And I'm like, and they seem to actually like have a funny connection because they don't show, I mean, of course they like show the like hot relationships, but I'm curious about her.
In case anyone was curious, we're talking about The Bachelor. For all these names that like, I feel like probably everyone that listens to this probably watches The Bachelor. But yeah, it's really interesting that like, for the 3 Black leads that will have been on the show, like could be 100% interracial.
Although I will give Tayshia, like I have to imagine, like if Emmanuel's point is that, they need to be having conversations about race and can't ignore it and like perpetuate this like ignorance about color. Tayshia did have a lot of conversations, and I guess primarily with her Black counterpart, like the Black bachelor,
Ivan.
Ivan.
Oh, yeah.
Like they talked primarily about that,
right?
But I have to imagine that like she's also had, if she was having that open of a conversation, she also probably was having that with her now fiance. So I mean,
yeah, for sure.
I mean, yeah, it is. That was kind of an out of left field portion of that book.
Well, on that note, that's all I'm fucking watching.
Bachelor.
I'm not. We haven't like picked a new show. We're still watching The Crown. Ben's still slogging through it.
Stop! I finished so fast.
Well, because I'm watching it with Ben, I'm not going through it.
Give me all the Diana content.
I I'm a big show rewatcher. I know we've talked about this before. Like it eases my anxiety. I've seen things on it that's like the reason that people rewatch shows and rewatch movies that they love is because like they know what's happening. They know the emotional response they're going to have to things. Like it's just like
It's not an
settling.
unknown. It's a very much known.
Right.
Yes.
So we are big show rewatchers, and we are also currently rewatching Veep, which is just it's just the fucking best.
Alex and I have never finished Veep. Like
Oh,
we kind of
so
I don't
good.
know. Alex and I. So we started I'm also primarily watching The Bachelor, but also just a shit ton of Housewives because
Yep.
I feel my arteries dilate when I watch which the most like prime cardiovascular health, like I am prime relaxed when I am watching The Housewives. God knows why.
And you're watching Salt Lake City right now, right?
I watch all of them.
All of them.
Literally every single one. Anyway, but Alex and I did start another French show. Shocker.
Oh my God, who are you?
I don't know, but this one
Like, is it subtitles too?
Well, I wish. I never thought I'd wish. But you know when they do the dubbing where it's like the French
is that what's happening?
And then they do the English over it. So like in the mouth and it doesn't match.
Right, obviously it doesn't match.
So it's a little bit I don't like it as much. I think largely because of that, because I loved
That's so distracting.
The French. Yeah, it's very distracting. But it's a cool show actually. So it's called,
what is it called?
Well, I'm not going to do my French accent because you made fun of me last time.
I mean, it was really good, but it caught me off guard.
It's called Loop. I don't know how to say
Just
it.
do it. Just do it.
Lupin. Lupin is what it's called.
Fucking duh. Ben is watching that.
Lupin, yeah. And what's cool about it, and is something that I probably would never.
Wait, I thought it was subtitled.
Maybe you can. I don't know. It's on Netflix. Alex and I, the version we have, it's like dubbed.
Ben is definitely watching.
Are you listening when he's watching? Because they do have subtitles.
Oh, it's fucking French.
Okay, I'm gonna find that version. Thank the fucking Lord. But it's cool. So it's kind of the premise is loosely like this, basically this one male protagonist. It's the male protagonist of the whole show.
Yeah.
It follows him like kind of as a child and like his life, but he basically reads this book that like kind of changes his life, and it like kind of makes him quite literally into like the man he is. Okay. Which is, if I give anything else, it's kind of, I don't want to get right, but it's almost like it becomes his profession, and he models his life after this book and this.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And he's a Black actor, so like literally, it's really cool because how often? I mean, now that I am like saying that out loud, it's like, my God, like of course,
right?
But
gross.
But for real, like Black actor protagonist, like running the show, and he's really. I mean, I'm enjoying it. I'm not enjoying the fucking dubbing, so I need to find.
There is definitely, because I remember. I was reading while Ben was watching it, and I remember thinking like, oh, I can do this because I plan to watch the show at some point. So I was like, oh, it's French. I can't understand what they're saying. So I can sit here while you watch it. Yeah. So there is definitely a French version.
I need to like explore that. Alex is like less in it. He like thinks he's like,
well, that's because they're speaking English.
Right. Well, and he's like, he doesn't like, and I get it. Like, as a character, the main character, you're kind of like, stop. Like, why are you
cringy?
Yeah. Well, you're like, it's just who the character is. You're like, oh, you're stop being gross. Like, just don't do that. Like, why are you doing these things? Like, you're perpetuating this like terrible cycle. So I think that's why Alex doesn't like it. But I like it, but I'm not enjoying watching it as much because of the dubbing.
Well, you'll fix that, and then you'll tell me how much different it is with subtitles. Yeah, it definitely has subtitles. I don't know. I don't think he's done yet, but it's only one season right now, right?
Yeah. And I think, did we finish it? We might have finished it last night.
It's not very long.
Yeah. I think we finished it last night. So we watched that. But next I am going to start Bridgerton.
Oh yeah. I still haven't fucking started that. I have to watch that without Ben too.
It was Gossip Girl and butter churning. Basically,
can't wait. Can't fucking wait.
And then my friend yesterday was like, "Oh, and it's actually very good. Like, I really like it." And I was like, "Okay." So if I go in thinking it's Gossip Girl, I'm not going to be hard on Shonda Rhimes on a period piece because, like, I'm not going to go.
It's Shonda Rhimes.
Yes, I'm not going to go in expecting Downton Abbey. I'm going to go in expecting Gossip Girl, and then I'm just going to like be pleasantly surprised. So I mean, I am going to start that. I think.
Speaking of a weird period piece, have you heard of the show Dickinson on Apple TV? It is with Haley Steinfeld, who was in one of the Pitch Perfect movies and then released a couple singles after that.
Oh yeah.
And she is Emily Dickinson.
Oh.
So it's like the costume and the setting and the storyline is all historical, but the music and the dialogue are current. Ben fucking loves it. I think it's a nightmare. So Ben will, like, if I'm not watching TV with him, he'll just like throw it on. And I think it's so like having rap music in the background of like them walking around in these dresses that Emily
Well, it's
Dickinson would
funny
have.
that you're saying this and like you loved Hamilton.
Oh yeah, that's so true. You're so right.
So like, but
Yeah,
so
no,
here's
you're
what's
so
cringy
right.
for me was a little cringy for me is like music, like, is it kind of like a musical? It's not
No,
a
it's not a
musical. Okay,
musical.
okay.
When I say music, I just mean like transition or
Got it.
like
Okay, so they're not like singing.
no,
Oh,
no,
okay,
no,
okay, okay,
no.
okay. Yeah, yeah,
Like there's a party and the music that's playing is like Usher. It's not Usher, but like in that genre. It could be like Chance the Rapper and they're like dancing and
yeah.
it's
And
like
they're like poof,
right, correct.
and like
Correct. It's so bizarre. If anyone's watched Dickinson and has different thoughts, I would love to hear them because like
it's not.
I'm
I'm intrigued by it because I love a period piece, but I'm definitely gonna do Bridgerton first.
yeah, I mean like it's a period piece in the sense that it's like about somebody in history and like it's accurate in like the portrayal of what it looks like,
Right,
but like
which is part of the joy for me.
right. But it's also like she's talking like it's 2021. Like there's no like we're not talking like we're in Downton Abbey. Like we're just talking like
Yeah,
friends on
yeah,
the
I don't
street.
know. We'll see. I'll maybe start that one day and let you
It's
know.
yeah. It is something. On that note, our February
Oh yes, I was like,
book.
what is this shiny cover? The library.
Listen, it's the library cover. No, if you're not watching the YouTube video, you can't see, but like you can hear the little library crinkle. Our February book is Detransition Baby by Tori Peters.
Very
I like sort of
excited.
I sent them to Low. I sent some suggestions and then sort of laterally decided because
Yeah,
it's a library book.
love it.
So I'm pumped. I've heard it's great. So
I'm really excited. I'm
I'm
very
really
excited.
excited
It
to
was
read that.
released earlier this year, right?
Yeah, it was really sometime in January.
Yeah. Like
So what
earlier
I
this
would
year, define earlier this year, the
right, like a few weeks
10/30.
ago.
Like, my God.
So what like I said, what we're doing with these is just like so we won't talk about this until the first March episode. So we won't talk about it in the second
So everyone will have a
February
month to
episode.
read it if you want to read
Yes, you have
along.
a month to read it. We'll talk about it in the first March episode. And again, like like we talked about, we may have less to talk about because it's not a nonfiction book, but it won't be spoilers. It won't be like a super long, discussion on the book. So even if you haven't read it, like you could still
No, what
listen
would
to
be
the
fun is if
discussion.
we had people send us, people that have read it, send us like things you want to ask us about the book or
Oh,
oh, I
love
want to
that.
hear Jamie and Lo talk about X. Like, so maybe we'll do something like that. That'd be fun.
Yeah, excellent. So if you've already read it, keep that in mind and
Mhm.
send us something. We still don't get emails, guys. I don't know how we can
No one
beg for
wants to
email.
share their fucking try saying that out loud moments with
I
us.
get it. It's
I
hard for
don't.
us.
I'm kidding. I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah. Do you get it? Because we're getting smacked in the face with them. I don't like, does
But
anyone
like,
else want to hear their smacking in the face moment?
well, I wish, because then it would
Right.
we would not talk about ourselves for the entire time.
Listen, we're doing the whitest thing that's
I
ever
know. Once again,
existed.
it's like just stop
So,
saying that, Laurel, because
right. That's what's happening. That's what's happening.
don't.
So yeah, Detransition Baby for February book. We will be talking about it the first episode of March. I'm pumped. And the
Yeah,
cover's really pretty.
yeah,
So that
yeah.
always
You
makes I love a fucking cover. Like remember when we talked about the Bridgerton books and I was like, I will absolutely never pick this up.
what? No, remember when I was like, just Google it because for me too. I'm like, this is talk about the least like. If that was on a shelf, like I would
I would
skip right. I
actively
probably would
ignore it.
black out, and I probably would not
Right.
even realize I saw it. And
Right.
like, my
I think
God,
it's so interesting that book genres have like cover types. Like we've talked about like romance
well, it's
novels. Like
not that shocking. They do so much research about that. I'm pretty sure so much
I'm
consumer
sure,
research
but it's
because if you think about how
mind-boggling.
many blue spined books you have, so much blue. I
Really?
like want to know why like people love blue for
I
books.
have some blue, but like I definitely don't have like I'm looking at my shelf. It's not like
I have a good amount of blue.
overwhelmingly blue.
I have a good amount of blue.
But yeah, I'm sure that there's like so much research done. Like every John Grisham book looks the fucking same on the cover.
It's
Every James
basically, I
Patterson
look at a
book,
cover and I'm like, I'm not your target audience.
correct.
Like,
That's exactly what I feel like with these, with like the romance books or like these the Bridgerton,
yep,
which are
I
also like
can tell.
romance.
I can 100% tell just at a glance.
Well, and like also the stereotypical historical fiction, which I'm a sucker for. Every World War II historical fiction has like a woman with her with facing the horizon.
Turn
You see the back of her
around
head.
every now and then I get a little bit down.
I mean, it's just unreal. Like if you go into
Turn
fucking,
around.
in case you missed that, it was low singing.
I'm a beautiful
Um, but
You
yeah,
know,
I just think
singing is a way to calm your vagus nerve, so just bring me back. Humming,
this
singing.
episode has taken some turns. We have learned what a fucking creature I am.
That
I
was
feel like
my
that's Lo's
favorite
favorite
part.
thing.
My favorite thing.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be like a topic of
Like
conversation
every time you go
frequently.
to the airport, I'm going to require a selfie. Or like not even, no, not a selfie. So whoever's with you has to take a photo of you.
Like next to my luggage.
Yeah, just like existing. Like I'm gonna need Ben's phone number so I can be like, let me
Yeah,
know,
that's
just
fine.
capture the best candid
I'm
you can get.
thinking of my most stereotypical
Like you're
airport
in
outfit.
line at Starbucks, hat
Oh yeah, that's the thing that I do every
with
fucking time.
your
So
thing. Yeah.
I have a hat. I have a baseball hat. Before they were like super trendy, I got those area or airport code hats for Detroit. So
I
now
didn't
it's
know
like
that
a
was a
thing.
thing.
But like before it was like a thing. I got it in Detroit and thought it was like amazing. So I was like wearing that in the airport with sunglasses, Lululemon aligns, some sort of like not like necessarily like a workout tank, but like some sort of like loose fitting, just like solid colored tank. And then I have this jacket that is half denim, and then the sleeves are like sweatshirt sleeves. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
And it has a hood.
Yeah.
And then I have like cute sneakers. But yeah, that is the uniform. Ben's gonna hear
Uh,
this and fucking lose his shit.
I'm gonna die. I need Ben's phone number, and when airports are a thing again, I'm just gonna need
You know what it's
the
gonna be? It's
best
not even gonna
candidate
matter.
he can
I'm gonna
find,
be getting on a plane to San Francisco.
and
You'll be
I'm
picking
going
me
to
up.
start an Instagram account of
With
only
me at the
you
airport.
candid at the airport.
It's amazing. Like I said, like you'll be picking me up from the fucking San Francisco airport and you'll get to see
And I'm just
Creature
not gonna pick you
perform.
up until you take your sunglasses off.
No, I'll be outside. I'll be allowed to wear them.
I'm just hoping it's overcast or something so I can give you shit.
No, whatever. All right. I'm done. We're done. We're done with
We're
this
done
shit.
talking today, guys.
I said we were gonna make this shorter, but I'm sure that we didn't. So sorry.
Maybe a tidbit. Like, you never know. But sorry, guys. We'll see you in 2 weeks. See ya.
We will see you in 2 weeks. So until next time.
Try saying that out loud.
Bye.
Bye, guys.